Craig, how much does a coach help? How much can... Right, so Ruud van Nistelrooy was brilliant, obviously. How much does him coming in actually help Hojlund? Or do you need all the tools in the first place to have...
Well, I think it can definitely help this kind of player at this age. There's no doubt about that. He can talk to him about his movement. You can't give him you can't just all of a sudden wave a magic wand and all of a sudden he's more talented at certain aspects of his game. But you can certainly talk to him about his link-up play and his movement and his runs and his timing and how he works and stuff like that. But then putting it all into place in the game is never easy. But it's certainly not a hindrance to have a guy who's been there, seen it and done it, talk you through, maybe watch your pre-season, maybe watch some videos of last year, and maybe look at little bits that he can improve on, whether it be, hold-up play, whether it be the timing of his runs, the nature of his runs, bending runs at certain times to stay onside, or whether he's going too early. All these kind of things. So I definitely think it can be a help, but it's a very small piece in this huge jigsaw that is Manchester United. And Andy Cole talked about form last year with United. It wasn't the form, it was lack of talent. It was lack of quality. It was lack of coaching. It was lack of a strategy. It was lack of a plan. All those things. It wasn't form. It was a lack of all those things pretty much all the way through the season. But in terms of a young striker who's looking to improve, then I think a player like Van Nistelrooy or any player who's understood that role, I think it can help him if he's willing to listen.
Nate, it was interesting, obviously. He said that you could see that Rasmus Hojlund liked to wrestle, or was wrestling too much with centre-backs, and centre-backs were taking advantage of that, obviously, to gain free kicks. Is that something, as a former defender, you notice and try and take advantage of?
I think it depends on the person and the team you're playing against, to be honest. I think at times maybe Hojlund was perhaps guilty of that, whereas for United, historically, we've seen people more be involved with the movement, making sure they're in the right areas at the right moments, linking the play. But he's a strong boy and he wanted to try and use that. But I think, as we were sort of talking about there with the coaching side of things, maybe Van Nistelrooy, alongside Ten Hag, can get the message into him that stuff doesn't really matter as much as he believes it should do. I think it's very easy to forget that Hojlund is... he's still a young player, he's a young person, and he's trying to find his way in this league, which, as it stands, he still doesn't fully get and understand what the sort of benefits can be for him within it. So yes, at times you can lean into people that want to try and play that way. But I think, as we saw last year, like United, they obviously had deficiencies in terms of how they defended as a collective, but they also didn't create a ton of chances either. Yes, Hojlund did miss some opportunities along the way, but if they are to be a team that creates lots of opportunities, then he's going to be a big part of that. So if he's backing in thinking this is helping, well, unfortunately, it's not. So I anticipate, if Andy Cole's saying that, my former teammate at Man City, by the way, I'll get that one out there. Yeah, then if he's saying it, then I'm a believer that that's something that you could definitely work on to be a better player.
Rasmus Hojlund cost £72 million, Mark.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think what the guys said are all right, and Andy Cole as well. Some of the stuff that Andy Cole was saying then, that if he could sit down with Rasmus Hojlund for 5 minutes and explain those things, that would help him. And Van Nistelrooy would help as well. But I do think that he probably needs somebody alongside him on the pitch to actually guide him through games in real time, because he's young. And I was watching him during the Euros for a couple of games for Denmark, and there's not a lot of finesse about his game. He needs to add a bit more, be a bit cuter really, and bend his runs a little bit more, take the defender away from the centre of the pitch all the time. So I think he needs to add a little bit of craft to his game, and that often only comes with game intelligence, and he might not have that in his locker. He might just be a guy that gets his head down and, like a bull in a china shop, really, wrestles with defenders and he's quite direct. But he's got something, Rasmus Hojlund, but I don't quite know what it is. And at the moment, it's not goals, and that is the problem. I think if you had a go, it would have a value, because not all strikers need to score goals, and I think the classic example is Michael Owen and Emil Heskey. Heskey didn't score a lot of goals, but he was a perfect foal for Michael Owen. I don't know if Rasmus Hojlund has yet got the perfect strike partner to play with, or the forward to play alongside. If Marcus Rashford finds some form this year, maybe Rashford could benefit from the runs that Hojlund makes and the pressure he puts on defenders. But I don't think Hojlund's ever going to be a 25-goal a season striker, but he might be a useful striker in the sense that he makes space for others. But he's not he's not. I mean, listen, he came with all this nonsense about, you know, comparing to Erling Haaland. He's not in the same league. But, you know, he's got something. But for me, he's a third or fourth choice striker at a big club, and at the moment he's playing as the first choice striker. He's not ready for that yet.
Mark, who compared who to Erling Haaland, Oggy?
So when he came in, Rasmus Hojlund was compared to Haaland. His name sounds similar. He's from Scandinavia. He plays for the Manchester club. It was all these kind of lazy cliches that were kind of, and he was having to do the job that Haaland did for City, and it was, again, an impossible task. I think United almost encouraged it in many ways by suggesting that, we're back in youth. Give him time. He can be a player that, like Haaland at City. And it was like, come on, give the kid a chance. Don't compare him to the guy across the road who's probably the best striker in the world. But, United spent a lot of money on him, probably twice as much as he was worth. And getting back to Leny Yoro's situation, yes, it's a lot of money, but I do think it's more within the parameters of what he's worth than with Hojlund and Anthony, another example, that was way, way over the top. So they seem to have kind of realised a player's value rather than paying over the odds just to get him through the door.
Last bit of United business with you, Mark, because we lost you. Obviously, Xerxes come in. We talked about Yoro. We talked about the possibility of De Ligt coming in. That's a lot of money spent already. How much is there going to be left?
Well, I think they're going into what they expect to bring in. I think they've definitely they've burned through what the actual pot of cash. So, look, they've already got rid of Mason Greenwood. They've got rid of Willy Cambuala, which it might not be a lot, but a £10 million for a defender, which, again, it shows a change in focus at United. Because in the past, they would have given Cambuala a new contract and kept him, and when he was clearly not good enough. So they've already brought in around £40 million. I think Scott McTominay will be probably the next to go. Fulham are quite keen there. Maguire will go, I imagine. Lindelof will go. Wan-Bissaka will go to West Ham. It looks like maybe 15 million. So by the time they've got these players out the door, you might be talking 120 million pounds, which would be great business considering who you're getting rid of. So I do think that by the time you add that money coming in and the maybe 50, 60 million pounds it's budgeted for, that will be their summer business. And that, at the moment, I mean, what they spent 50 million pound on Yoro, 30 odd million pound on Xerxes. That's 85 already. So they've still probably got around about 80 million pounds to go if they get the players out that they want to get out. So, and I think they will find people to let go. I mean, even Donny van der Beek's off the wage bill. So they've got players out of the door. Varane's off the wage bill as well. So they are quietly getting business done, which, I mean, we've all been critical of Man United over the years, that their summer business has generally been terrible, giving big deals to players that are too old. But now they're getting people out the door. I think Casemiro might go as well, and that again would free up a lot of money. So they are quietly going about the business. It's early days, but generally at this stage of the summer, Man United are talking a good game, but they're not playing one. But for once, they're actually getting the business done, which is a nice change.
Well, I mean, you've just mentioned all those names, Oggy. Who the hell's going to play in the middle of the park? Are they just not going to bother with a midfield?
Mainly, he'll do everything. He's the star now.
Because they didn't have one last year. Eriksen too old now. Casemiro, you mentioned, can't get around. McTominay, grafter, did get some goals. Bruno Fernandes went back and played in there, but he's not really a midfielder. He needs to have other natural midfielders. You have the youngster in Kobe Mino, who's excellent. But to me, they're going to need at least another two midfielders of real quality, but they're spending the money everywhere else.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And obviously, Amrabat has gone back to Fiorentina at the end of his loan. So right now, they're planning for the start of next season with just one midfield. I mean, Mason Mount, the forgotten man, he is available as well. Now, obviously, he's not going to play in a holding position in midfield, but he's an extra body. But you can't play with just Kobe Mainoo because one, he's too young to play all the games, and two, he's not really defensively minded enough to play that role. So I'd imagine that they get to a point where, McTominay or Casemiro, one of them may have to stay, but I don't think either of them is a solution. It's getting back to the old United problem, isn't it? Are we keeping a player because he'll do a job or because he's good enough for the job? And I think now the Casemiro and McTominay are good enough for that job. So the sensible thing to do would be get rid of them and find somebody to come in that can play that role. But you're probably going to get rid of them first before you bring somebody in, and that leaves you with the problem that it might leave you short. But Casemiro can't do that role anymore. He can't get around the pitch. And Scott McTominay, while he can get around the pitch, he's not really got the football intelligence to play that role. So why keep them? Why not move them on and try and bring somebody in? And I'm sure they will do at some point. But at this stage, it could be one of many people that they're looking at. But I think right now they're getting business done. And I think, like I say, considering years past when they've not done that, at least they're not getting to the middle of August having not signed any players. They're actually getting things done. So I think at the moment it's a big tick in the Man United box for getting deals done.
Being linked to Real Madrid and PSG, but it looks like it'll be Manchester United who will win the race to sign the French defender for £60 million. For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we? Leny Yoro is with us, as is Mark Ogden. Mark, let's start with you. Is it a concern at all if you're United? Obviously, we're anti-United here on FC. The fact that PSG and Real Madrid wouldn't pay this transfer fee, but Manchester United will.
Do you know, I don't think it is. I think on this occasion, Real Madrid have spent a lot of money in this last 6 months, killing Mbappe on a free, but obviously it's not a free, he's got massive wages. They signed Endrick for nearly £50 million. They haven't got a lot of players out, so Real haven't really got the money to match what United are paying. So that's Real dealt with. PSG, as we know, if you're a young player that's supposedly one of the best young players in Europe, then the French league is not where it's at. So if Leny Yoro was going to move, it was going to be to the Premier League or Spain. So I think United have moved in. They knew they had rivals, and they've done a deal. And I think this is slightly different to what they've done in the past. It doesn't feel like a Rasmus Hojlund deal where they've paid way over the odds. I think it sounds like it's a good deal for a player. Yes, he's got a year left in his contract, but he is very highly rated. He is regarded as the next big thing in French football. So at 18 years old, United in the past they've missed out on young players. They missed out on Jude Bellingham, they missed out on Erling Haaland because they dithered. They didn't quite get the deal done. And I think this new Ineos regime have decided that, Sir Jim Ratcliffe did say, he said, we're not going to sign the next Kylian Mbappe, we want to sign the next or the new Kylian Mbappe, and that means signing the young players that have got the ability to become big stars. So I think on this occasion, United have done well. I didn't expect them to beat Real Madrid to sign a player this summer, so they've done well to get Yoro almost over the line. It's not done yet. There's a medical to be done, and it's still to agree personal terms. Now that, when they say they've got to agree personal terms, that usually means they're already done. But I think on this one, there is still a little bit of ground to cover. But I do think it'll be done in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Him and Lisandro Martinez, then first choice centre backs, Mark.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think it depends who else they get in. They're still looking at Matthijs de Ligt, and they could go back for Jared Branthwaite. So I think if they get one of those, it's going to be obviously strong competition because Yoro is still young and inexperienced. I'd imagine that Erik ten Hag would want a bit more experience there. But, he's in the mix. He's played, plenty of times for Lille now, and he's French under 21. But I do think United are looking for a more experienced centre-half to play with Martinez. Looks like Harry Maguire may leave if they find a buyer. Victor Lindelof can go. I think Johnny Evans is going to trigger a one-year deal. So they've got the numbers there, but I do think they want a little bit more experience because, let's be honest, Martinez, as good as he is, he gets injured. So they need a bit more experience they can rely upon at centre-half. But Yoro will play a lot of games this year.
So as you mentioned, what happens to the De Ligt deal now?
Well, it'll be De Ligt or Branthwaite. They'll still push ahead on one of those.
Oh, right,
I think
okay.
De Ligt is probably a more feasible deal because obviously Everton want £70 million for Jared Branthwaite. Now, Matthijs de Ligt is looking like it could be 35, 40 million pounds. So, as promising as Jared Branthwaite is, Matthijs de Ligt has got a lot more experience. But you could say that De Ligt's career has plateaued in the last couple of years.
Mark's just frozen, which is a shame, really, because I didn't want to go to Craig at all on any of this.
Augie.
There we go.
Sort your connection out. My God, schoolboy error, particularly today. Look, at the end of the day, it's a lot of money, isn't it, for a youngster? It's kind of bonkers.
But isn't necessarily going to start either.
Yeah, and is it going to affect their ability to spend in other positions that they need to? Several positions. Left back is an issue. I know they've got Shaw and Malacia, but they've both been injury prone, particularly Luke Shaw, who played for England but didn't play for United since February. And then you look at the middle of the park with Casemiro in there, and you've got McTominay and young Kobe Mino, who, if all things been equal, should just kick on, getting that more experience. But there are still other positions in the park that they have to spend. Now, I don't know how many players United can get out to be able to spend more to satisfy this profit and sustainability. I've got no idea. But they've got to strike a balance here, and 50-odd million seems like a lot for a player who might not start when you're looking at other areas of the team. But this is the way they've decided to go. And kind of it's the way the game is gone these days. But I don't know. It's a big rebuilding process. But 50+ million for for an 18-year-old who's in one season. It just seems to me just crazy.
Nathan, would you like to add anything, or shall I go to Andy Cole?
No, I'm going to say something actually. So, looking at the way that Julien Laurent, who is the French football expert as such, the way he was talking about it seemed like he was going to be really down on United, saying, "Oh, all this money for someone who you could get for a free." But he finished it by saying how good a player he is, and ultimately his success will be defined by how he performs for United in the future should he sign. So, I think it is a lot of money at that age, but the fact is, it is for one of the hottest prospects in European football. And if United have gotten this one right, then in years to come we'll be saying, the value didn't even matter at the start.